I love that middle grade is, I like to call it family literature, because it's a book that the whole family can read together or apart and talk about. And this is a book that I think adults can really listen to and think about on their own level, because the community that a kid has is their school and their family. The community that an adult has, what is your community? And how do you support your friends and your community stand up against fascism?
Welcome to the Curious Cat Bookshop podcast, the podcast of the Independent Bookstore of Winsted, Connecticut, creating a literary community in Northwest Connecticut, bringing our local authors to the world and the world to our community in Northwest Connecticut.
Hi, and welcome to the Curious Cat Bookshop podcast. I'm your host, Stacy Whitman, and the owner of the Curious Cat Bookshop. And we are here with A.M. Dassu, who is one of my authors. Welcome, Az.
Hi, Stacy. Thanks for having me.
And just wanted to let you guys know that if you are local to us in Winsted, Connecticut, we are in the northwest corner of Connecticut in the U.S. because this is an international podcast today. We have events and book clubs and all sorts of things in the bookstore. If you go to curiouscatbookshop.com/events, you can find all of the information there. For example, we have kitty story time with the local rescue every couple of months. So it's a wonderful community that you can be a part of. But if you are here online and you are in the US, because we only ship to the US, you can purchase from us the books that we're talking about at curiouscatbookshop.com. And if you are elsewhere, we recommend going to our bookshop.org page, clicking on bookshop.org/curiouscatbookshop, because I believe that the UK also has
we do.
Bookshop.
Yeah.
So that's a better way of doing that kind of thing, because then it just ships right to you from within the UK.
I didn't know that, so I'm going to go and order something from your shop now.
Well, I don't know if they make a division between US and UK as far as like the bookshops go. So if you cannot find us, there is a Curious Cat Bookshop in Cheshire that isn't us.
Oh, in England?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
We happen to have chosen the same name at about the same time. I think I started like a month before them.
Oh my God. What a coincidence.
Yeah, so we're constantly getting like cross-tagged.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing.
Isn't that hilarious?
Yeah.
So A.M. Dassu is the internationally acclaimed author of Boy Everywhere, Fight Back, and Kicked Out, which have collectively been listed for over 55 awards, including the Waterstones Children's Book Prize, the Week Junior Book Award, the Carnegie Medal, the Indie Book Award, Little Rebels Award for Radical Fiction, the American Library Association Notable Book List, and Jane Addams Peace Book Award. And she's got a new book coming out this November, which is a story collection. What's the title?
Wild Journey,
and that's coming out in the UK, so keep an eye out for it and pre-order it. And she's a director at Inclusive Minds, which is an organization for people who are passionate about inclusion, diversity, equality, and accessibility in children's literature. She grew up in the Midlands, dreaming of becoming a writer, but studied economics instead and worked in marketing and project management before realizing her dream. And now she writes books that challenge stereotypes, humanize the other, and are full of empathy, hope, and heart. And that's what I love so much about all these books that we worked on together. And I just have to point out these covers, which are so gorgeous, by Zainab, Daby, Faidhi, because they really draw the reader in. Look at those gorgeous covers. So, okay. Welcome, Az.
Hi.
So we have been working together for more than 5 years.
Yeah.
When did Boy Everywhere come out?
You signed
2019?
me in 2019. You signed me in 2019, yeah.
Signed you in 2019. So, and that was our first book, is Boy Everywhere. And so go ahead and tell everyone all about the books. What are they about and why did you write them?
So firstly, I'm just going to give a shout out to Stacy, best editor in the world. So good that I actually would contact her when, even on books that she wasn't working on, and say, could you work with me? And what I loved with like meeting Stacy was the first editor to buy any of my books. So Boy Everywhere sold in the US first and then the UK, and I'm from the UK, so that was a really big deal. And, the story is Boy Everywhere is about Sammy, who's a 13-year-old in Damascus in Syria. And he's much like any teen around the world. He, loves playing football. He loves playing on his PlayStation. He loves hanging out at the mall with his mates. His favorite, meal is a burger or pizza. And he goes to an English-speaking school. So right away, every stereotype that we have of the Middle East, of war-torn countries, is sort of, shredded apart there and then, like on the first page. And he is not really that affected by the war in Syria at that moment, because Damascus has been left untouched, because the government, have sealed it off and protected it. But then war, of course, comes to Damascus, and there's a bombing in a mall where his mum and sister are. And the family then decide to flee Syria because they know what's going to happen, because they've seen it across the rest of the country. And they they make a very difficult decision to leave everything behind, sell their home, and go across continents and countries to get to the UK for safety. So they travel across, from Damascus to Lebanon to Turkey, where the illegal journey begins, and through a smuggler's boat into the UK. And when they finally get to the UK and they think they're safe, they're put in a detention centre, which is like a prison. And when they're finally released and they think, everything's going to be okay now, it is not. And what this book does is it takes very ordinary people like us, but it puts them in extraordinary circumstances, like most refugees. And it shows us how easily any one of us could become refugees, because most people who've read the book connect with Sammy and his family, and they can see themselves, and they can see the reactions would be the same. One moment you're just going through life, you're okay, and the next minute your whole life is just upended. It's nothing like you could have ever imagined, because you didn't think you'd ever be touched by war. Like most people in the world, like
Right, exactly.
people in Ukraine right now, they and Palestine and Israel, they were all, one day going about their daily lives, and they've ended up absolutely not okay and having lost everything. So it's still, even though I wrote this book 6 years ago, it's still so topical.
So
Yeah,
timely. It's so timely.
I've got
Particularly, I think that this is a book for people who are not going through it.
yeah.
This is a book for empathy. I mean, I think it could be very healing to be seen, somebody who has gone through it, but I think it's for somebody to have empathy.
Yeah, it is. And that's why I wrote it, because I got so frustrated with the media headlines, talking about refugees and how they were coming here to take over our country, and, taking our resources and our hospital beds, and how they were invading. Essentially, every headline was about invasion and how they're aliens, and across the world, in America and in the UK. And I just one day was watching this video, and these Syrian men were standing in front of their tent on muddy ground, and they were wearing, nice clothes, nice shoes, and they had a smartphone in their hand as they were talking about what they left behind. And immediately I thought of that headline I'd seen about how these people are not refugees, they're migrants, because they have
Economic migrants.
yeah, because they have nice clothes. And it hit me. I was like, oh, hang on. What if, we went out into the streets and we protested against our government, and instead of the government sort of listening to us, what we're trying to say, they started shooting at us. And so we then started fighting back, the people, and we had a civil war, which is exactly what happened in Syria. And then all of a sudden, you've got all sorts of other countries, Russia, England, the US, Germany, bombing the place to bits, and a bomb lands on my street. I'm becoming that person who is going to run out of my front door with my Nike trainers on and my iPhone in my hand. I become that refugee. And that was the light bulb moment which made me write this story, because I was like, that could be me on that TV screen.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I did write it to build empathy. And it's so heartening in the sense that I've still got people tagging me today saying that this is so relevant. I'm rereading it with my son or daughter, or I'm reading it with my class.
It's also still horrifying that it's so relevant today.
Yeah, because we need to.
So many books where I'm like, when I'm working on it, I'm like, I really hope this is not relevant in 5 years.
And you know what, Stacey? Sadly, even Fight Back is. Like,
Mm-hmm.
yesterday I saw a picture of a house that's been graffitied in Liverpool, in England, and it says no Islam, no foreigners, get out.
I have a friend in Scotland who posted about a Chinese restaurant that was graffitied in a similar way. And I think that these, even though they're, spoiler alert, they're kind of set in the same world, but they're completely different characters. Boy Everywhere is about a boy who moves to Manchester, right? And I've got the wrong. And Fight Back is set. Remind me where Fight Back is set.
In the Midlands in England, and she's British born, but
Mm-hmm.
they both, experience really difficult circumstances. They're thrown into that they go about their lives, they're happy children at the beginning, and through circumstances not of their own, they're drawn into the politics of that country, and endure racism and feeling like they don't belong. And yeah, they essentially have to find the strength to get through something that's really quite unfair and cruel.
Right.
Yeah,
Fight Back is a book that I have been handing to teachers,
yeah,
middle school teachers here in the US, in the bookstore as an example of the things that kids have the power to do.
yeah,
Because right now, so many kids look out at the world, at what's happening in our own country, at what's happening in else other countries. If they are aware, because once you're 8, 9, 10 years old, you start to look out at the world and go, wait a minute, this is really like, at the moment, a lot of kids are saying, how do I make a difference? I'm just a kid. How do I make a difference? And I think that Fight Back is really a wonderful example of kids finding friends and working together with friends on a local basis to do what they have the power to do.
yeah.
What
It's
were you going to say?
empowering. Yeah, it's an empowering story, and I wanted whoever leaves the story to feel like, you may feel very alone in what you're going through, even if you're bullied for whatever reason, and you may feel like there's no one else that can understand your situation, but there is always someone going through something similar, and you just need to find those people, and together, when you fight back together, you're just stronger, so you got to
Mm-hmm.
find your people. And essentially, luckily, Alia does that in the book. She finds that there are people also being bullied for who they are because of their beliefs, because of the way they look. And she connects with, Jonah, who's Jewish. Suki, obviously her best friend is Sikh. Lisa's Christian. Got what's his name? How can I forget?
Leo?
Leon. Yeah, Leon, who's
Leon?
black.
Leon.
Yeah.
It's been a couple of years since either of us have read this book.
And Fei who's Chinese. So she, and they all come together and support each other. So it's very much about allyship as well. Whereas, we seem to think that allyship is, children tend to learn about allyship through war, World War II, the Allies. But actually, it can be something as simple as smiling at someone or asking if someone's okay, which is essentially what her friends do. They just say, "Are you okay?" And that can carry someone and give them so much confidence to get through school. So yeah, it's an
And I
empowering.
think that it's also kind of, if I love that middle grade is, I like to call it family literature, because
Yeah,
it's a book that the whole family can read together or apart and talk about.
yeah,
And this is a book that I think adults can really listen to and think about on their own level,
yeah,
because the community that a kid has is their school and their family. The community that an adult has, what is your community? And how do you support your friends and your community and stand up against fascism? I mean, we have creeping fascism around the world right now. It's not just here in the US. Everywhere we have,
Europe, England, yeah,
and I let me be clear, we are not just talking about politics as usual. We are talking about the return of something very serious. And adults, we have the power to do something about that, whether on the local level. I'm going to protest later today, and whether on the local level or however you might be able to within your power of influence. Like, I don't have the ability to change national politics, but I can get involved where I am. And that's what Fight Back feels
yeah.
that it's really getting at.
Yeah. And you know what's really interesting? Like, you're right, middle grade is for everyone, because I've had parents message me and say, I bought this for my son or daughter and they loved it. They said, you should read it. I read it. And like Boy Everywhere, this woman gave it to her mum, who was very, very xenophobic, anti-refugee. And she read it and she was like, okay, I can see why they come here. I understand. And that for me was like, wow, even if one person changes their mind through that book, that's all I needed. And yeah, Fight Back has been really empowering for kids. Also, what I love the most is when I do school events, it's not actually Muslim kids that are getting up, it's kids that are like, overweight or ginger, with ginger hair or whatever. And they're saying, I've been bullied and, I read this and it helped me. Or they'll actually say, what shall I do? Because they think I'm an
Right.
expert.
But
um,
but I love that they think about action.
yeah.
Not just I'm a victim, but
Yeah.
how do I take action? And this is
And that's what
Gigi.
Alia
This is my little baby.
that's what Alia does in that book. She hits rock bottom. She hides and she doesn't want to be herself. She's afraid to be who she is. And it's only there's a turning point in that book which makes her realize, no, I'm not going to be treated like this. I'm going to fight back. So it's such a pivotal, powerful moment. And I think it really connects with young people, where they think, actually, he did, so can I.
Well, let's talk about the title, because Fight Back has many meanings.
Yeah.
And you're not talking about fighting back physically. You're talking about standing up for yourself, standing up for your friends.
Yeah.
Talk about that.
It's about speaking up, standing out, and standing together. And the book itself is it's multi-layered. It's not just about Alia's experience. You see things through Alia's eyes, but actually her best friend, Lisa, whose brother is in the far right, he's been groomed, and she's affected. But then also Alia's brother, who is the same age as Lisa's brother, is also affected because he's been groomed by people that are anti-fascist and wanting to fight back.
A little bit extremist.
Extremists, yeah. So both brothers are extremists. They do want to take it physically, but then you've got the two girls who are trying to find another way of fighting back, and they do through friendship and community. And speaking, they go to the governors as well of the school. They fight back against the ban. But I think the main thing in this book, which is so heartening, is the solidarity, where all of the kids are so different, yet they come together for one cause because they know that this will affect everyone at some point. And that's where we are in the world right now. Like, we can look out and think, well, I'm okay, this is not affecting me right now, but actually everything has that domino effect, and at one point something awful happening to someone will affect you. So it's about sort of coming together, standing together.
I also think that you also write in the book, each of the kids says, well, this is how it affected me, and this is what affects me. Not just the people who are unaffected, but the people who are affected by there's so much coming at us all the time. And sometimes it's easy to stay in your own silo and be like, I'm the worst victim, instead of coming together and being strong together. And each of us has our own thing, but how can we be in solidarity together, even when we each have our own troubles?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that the friendships in this book show that. I just love this book so much.
I do.
And then Kicked Out is in Sammy's world, but it's from a different perspective. It's in the same school. Tell us a little bit more about that.
So Kicked Out. No, the other way. So Kicked Out, this time, this story is told from Ali's perspective, who is one of Sammy's friend in Boy Everywhere. And you meet Sammy. Sammy's in there as well, of course, and Adam, who's also a refugee, who's in Boy Everywhere, but he's an unaccompanied minor. So again, there are two plots in this story. So Ali is living his best life with his mates. Again, it starts all very, very well. You've got Mark, who has lived in poverty, eaten cold beans out of a can, and his mum's won the lottery, and now they're living in this amazing sort of house with a pool, and where the footballers live, and life's been transformed, and the boys are really looking forward to spending summer there. And then all of a sudden, Mark's mum's boyfriend accuses Adam, who's an unaccompanied minor, and he's working illegally in their backyard, of stealing £5,000. And they're all kicked out. It's not just Adam that's kicked out. Sammy and Ali are kicked out. So there's a racist element in there. And the boys then, realize that Adam is going to be deported. He's been told by the courts that he isn't a minor because he doesn't have any evidence, because he lost it all along the way in his journey, and he doesn't look it. And so what this book does is kind of show that when you get here, people assume that you're so lucky to be in this country in the West, whether that's the US or the UK. We take you in and we support you. And so many headlines are about how they stay in hotels, with taxpayers' money, etc. And actually, it shows how demoralizing that is, that you aren't able to go to school, you aren't able to go to work. And, I worked with a charity who supports unaccompanied refugees, young people. And the psychotherapist there said that it's not the journey. So if you read Boy Everywhere, you'll see what the lorry journey feels like, what that boat journey feels like, which is truly, truly traumatic. But it's not
It's
the
harrowing.
harrowing. And that is not what affects them. What affects them the most is not being believed that I'm 16 or that I'm 15. Like, they can't get past that, and there's no way to prove it. So this book kind of shows, like, Adam's hands are weathered. He lived rough for a year. He was homeless. He had to live among adults, strangers. So he had to grow up. His mannerisms had to change. He's not a child because of what he's been through, and he has
He's
no
been
way.
forced into adulthood too early.
Yeah, and he's having to prove that he's a child, and it's so hard for him to do that. So he talks about his mum not leaving Syria because her legs have been damaged through bombing or whatever, but she's trying to find paperwork in the rubble of their house with his school certificate, so that at least he can show those in place of his passport or whatever. And then so the boys basically decide they're going to raise money for Adam to help pay for his court fees to fight this case, so that he can prove that he is a child that can stay here. And again, what this book is a mashup of Fight Back and Boy Everywhere, because you've got the refugee element, but it's looking at a completely different perspective, where Adam has had a very different experience to Sammy in Boy Everywhere. And then it also has got the empowering community element of Fight Back, where you've got the boys coming together. They approach the school. They want to organize a football fundraiser, a charity football match. And with the ticket money, donate that to Addams.
Right.
And the whole school. There's another sort of empowering moment in there where the teacher says, well, we have refugee week we mark it every year, and every school
Right.
does.
Every school, and the only reason why I don't think it's as known in the US is that a lot of our schools are no longer in session during refugee week, because it happens in June, right?
Yeah. So in June, like, all the schools will mark it. They'll watch videos, or they'll study literature about it. They'll have sessions. And what the head teacher says is, it's time, we've done the talk, it's time to walk the walk. And so they support these boys. They have the fundraiser at their school, and the whole community comes together. So they're making tickets, the kids are excited about buying tickets. And then there's a chance meeting with a celebrity footballer who also supports them. But on the other side, there is a sort of the subplot is also that Ali has not seen his father since he was 8 years old. He's been absent, and his father's back on the scene, moved into the area, and his half brother's about to join his school. And that causes absolute havoc for Ali in his mind and emotionally. He can't bear to think that his dad chose another family and abandoned them. And he really struggles with feeling, I guess, not chosen, And I guess I chose that theme because there are millions of children that have absent fathers. There are millions of children that live in divorced homes that have contact with the father regularly, but then there are millions who have never seen their father or will not see their father again. And those kids, I wanted them to feel seen. I wanted them to see that you may feel completely sort of shut out, may feel unworthy because of the way that someone like a parent or a teacher or a lover might make you feel. You feel rejected, but you can also get through that. And so Ali processes those feelings through the book too. And he finds confidence in himself. And this boy is a confident, happy teen, and he goes from being the rock that Sammy had in Boy Everywhere to a shell of himself because of his dad turning up, something so small.
And it's kind of like a thing that he'd stuffed down that now he has to deal with.
Yeah. And it also looks at the the responsibility you feel sometimes when your parents are divorced. Like, he feels very responsible for his mum. I felt that. I mean, my mum and dad got divorced very early, and I felt like I had to be really good. I had to be really responsible.
It's a parentification kind of thing if you've got siblings too.
Yeah, and feeling like guilty also for wanting to meet the other parent that has caused that drama in your home. So it's not just like it's a multi-layered book. There's so much you can get from it. There's
Oh,
also
absolutely.
coercive control, like Mark's boyfriend, who's the one that kicked them out. Mark's mum's boyfriend,
Mom's boy.
who couldn't kick them out. He's been seeing racist stuff. They've been seeing racist stuff on Facebook, and they've sort of been conditioned to, sort of hating the other. And he sort of used manipulative, coercive control to get Mark's mum to keep those boys out of the house. So there's so many things to explore in that book.
I think the if we want to talk about your body of work, the stack of books, they're all about kids and their big feelings and how they can find the way to growing up and figuring out themselves and their relationships with the support that they need. And I think that is it's beautiful. It's really lovely and something that I want more kids to experience, because like, not just in a book, but in real life, because I think it shows kids that it's possible.
Yeah.
Even if they don't have it in their own lives right now. And I think that at the same time, you're bringing attention to issues that maybe a lot of people don't want to talk about. A lot of people don't want to acknowledge that we are all humans going through this human experience, and maybe we shouldn't be bombing each other, and maybe, all of those things. And the human impact to particularly the children.
And you know what, Stacey, what I find amazing, and I find it really amazing, because when I wrote Boy Everywhere, my wish was just for like 2 or 3 schools to read it. I didn't think it was going to become as big as it has. And I was so shocked. Like everywhere I go, generally in terms of stats, it's always boys that are more reluctant to read at this age than girls, right?
Oh, yeah.
And everywhere I go, when there is a signing queue, or it's the boys. Look at me. I'm not like a cool person, and they will be queuing to meet me, queuing to get a book, even a scrap of bit of paper signed, or to ask questions. And they really connect with these books because I don't hold back. They're very real about the feelings, but also they're not violent books. Like as parents or adults, guardians, you want to protect your children, but they know everything. Like they've got exposure through Snapchat, through Instagram, through YouTube. They know exactly what is going on in the world. They know, that they're maybe,
Even if it's not being talked out about at home.
yeah. So they talk about it. And so these books give them the opportunity to explore those issues fully, from all perspectives, not just a like siloed biased perspective. And they connect to them. Like even just the fact that there's a bomb, it's not like, boys want to read that stuff. Like if you say to them, there's a bombing in here, they want to read that. But then the story is much more than that. That's like 1 page,
Yeah.
but you've got the hook.
And they're all like, oh, it'll be like a Marvel movie and they're superheroes. Not quite.
Yeah, and my boys love, like in Fight Back, the fact that obviously the stories about Alia and her friendship, but then how her brother and Elisa's brother were going to go at each other, and there was going to be this sort of showdown. They love that because it's real. Like this is what children want to talk about and explore. So yeah, I didn't hold back in these books, and I didn't do that because I know what my children come home telling me, what kids are discussing in school. And I'm thinking to myself, how old are these kids going to be when they start learning actually what the reality is, or what that feels like? So yeah, and I had one boy come up to me in an event in a school, and he said to me, really awkward, and he said, "Can I just thank you?" And I said, "Yeah, sure." And he said, "I know I'm not a refugee and I'm not from Syria, but my dad got a job in the Netherlands, and we had to move. And I read Boy Everywhere, and it really helped me." And I was just like, "Wow, this." Because and I said, "Yeah, because you had to leave everyone you love and everything behind, and you had to start again." And that's exactly what Sammy does. And he acknowledged that it wasn't, in this, as a refugee, but those feelings, as you said, were exactly the same. So what I love is that how these books transcend across so many cultures and ages, even though they're about issues that parents or guardians might think are completely irrelevant for children in the
Or
West.
even a
Um,
boring because,
Yeah,
a lot of times the
yeah. Because they
subject
want to,
is serious. And so
yeah,
people might think it's a boring
yeah,
subject. I don't think so at all. Like, and that's, I think it helps that the covers are so amazing that people will pick them
yeah,
up.
yeah. And
But go
they're
ahead.
intrigued by the titles too. They're intrigued by the titles too. They're always like, why did you choose that? Because the titles don't give anything away. Like I
Mhm.
remember my UK
Well, we
editor wanted
talked,
me to put the word refugee in the title, and I was like, no, I've talked to you about it. Yeah.
and you
Uh,
and I talked about Boy Everywhere as a title for a long time because the marketing department was like, "Is
yeah.
this the
I
right
told you. Yeah.
title?" And so we went back and forth and we brainstormed, and really, like, the reason why you chose it,
Yeah.
it made sense.
Yeah.
He's the
Exactly.
same boy wherever he is.
I said, if I put refugee in there, only people interested in refugees are going to read that book. Boy Everywhere is for everyone. This book is not for a certain type of people. And therefore, yeah, lots of kids are reading them. And Kicked Out, again, it's so multi layered. Like, Kicked Out is they get kicked out of the house. Sammy's been kicked out of his country, Addams too, and Ali feels like he's been kicked out of his dad's life. There's so many. Mark feels he's kicked out of his mum and boyfriend's new relationship, and he's having to sort of put up with it. So each
Mhm.
title is so multi-layered. Fight Back, again, like you said, it's not about fighting back with your fists. It's about standing up for yourself, fighting back against injustice, hatred, but fighting back against bully
Fighting for as
and
well.
fighting for your friends. Yeah. And then also, and against policy, because obviously a part of it's about school policy, fighting back and pushing back in a respectful way. And knowing this book also shows you, Fight Back also shows you that there are ways to question authority. And sometimes
Mhm.
it may not be the right thing, but you can do it respectfully. So
Mhm.
yeah, they're an education in themselves.
Absolutely, and that's what I love so much about them. Before we run out of time, I always love to talk with writers about their writing process, and I think that this is a special. You are writing from your own point of view in every book, obviously. Like, there's a lot in the books that you have experienced or that you have seen your kids experience, but particularly thinking about the experience of a Syrian refugee, you are not a Syrian refugee. What was your process like in representing that experience?
Yeah. So, I mean, I wrote it quite easily because of experiences in my family. They weren't refugees; they were migrants. They had to flee Africa. My granddad did. There were, my granddad also lost his wife and daughter on a boat journey. I had my uncle who came to America illegally, just like Sammy's parents, in order to seek safety. So I had awareness of all of that. But actually, to make this book authentic, I reached out to my
I
Syrian
don't think
friend.
it's illegal to seek safety.
Yeah, exactly. No, yeah, exactly. And he has his green card now, by the way.
Not be saying his name.
Oh, whoops, no. But I reached out to my Syrian friend in the UK who had migrated to the UK. She was a refugee. And I said to her, look, will you read this book for me? And will you please put me in touch with anyone you know in Damascus that can read it, that I could speak to? And then she connected me with her friend from school who, serendipitously was a teacher, just like Sammy's mum. Her husband was a surgeon, just like Sammy's dad. And she had two children, also boy and a girl, like Sammy's family. And her son was 12 years old, just 1 year younger than Sammy. And so they read it, and then she got her students to read it. So I got feedback from them. And, I remember her, she said to me, her son was like, how does she know all this? How does she know she doesn't live here? But I'd watched YouTube videos. I'd read so many blogs. I not just looked at what was happening now, I'd looked at what happened before, who they were. And I guess the whole point of the
Mhm,
story was to show that refugees are people who had whole and full lives. They're not just that label. They're not people
mhm.
without anything. And so I wanted to sort of convey that in the book too. And, to hear from them, like I remember one of her students said to me, thank you so much for saying what we're not able to say. So I was encouraged, and I met lots of refugees in the UK too. I've been going to a refugee center where they meet every week. and I'd already been sort of helping a Syrian lady in my own city. So I spoke to so many refugees too. So lots of Syrian people, but also all sorts of other refugees, because I wanted to make sure that I felt very responsible for what I was putting forward. I didn't take it lightly, and I didn't see it as a story that I was making.
Right.
For me, it was like, these are real lives, stories that need to be honored. Although it's a work of fiction, it,
Right.
it
Right.
is the experiences are of what people experience. But I chose Sammy to have an affluent, middle class life, because I wanted children in the West and people in the West to connect to him. And there are people who have those experiences that are able to pay for boat journeys and do fly. Like one of my friends I met in my launch, Amar, he had the exact same journey as Sammy,
Mhm.
So yeah, I checked that.
Flew from and let for the people who haven't read it yet, they drove across the border,
Yeah, from
flew to
Damascus is
Greece.
yeah, no, so
No, 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 no.
is literally,
Damascus.
yeah, Damascus is just 100 miles from Lebanon. Okay, very close. So they drive there,
Oh,
they go
drive to Lebanon, and then they flew from Lebanon to
Beirut to Turkey, which is still legal,
oh,
and then
yes.
a lot of people,
Then they took a boat to Greece.
yeah. And then they took then the illegal journey with the smuggler, paid a smuggler to get them across to Greece, which is now you're in Europe. And then from Greece, they were taken in a lorry and they flew from Athens to the UK. And my friend Amar actually did the same. He drove from Lebanon to Damascus to Lebanon, flew to Turkey. He was supposed to stay in Turkey, but because Turkey took in like millions of Syrian refugees at that time, people were getting unhappy. Like there were so many people all of a sudden, there's an influx, and they weren't really going to be able to get jobs. It was getting difficult. He knew English, very, very good English. So the next logical step was to go to an English speaking country, which is what most people, why they choose English speaking countries. Either they know someone or they know the language so they can start again. And then he also took the boat journey from Greece, and then he walked. So that was a different bit. He walked from Greece to the Macedonian border, where he then met smugglers and took a plane from Spain. So yeah, but very, very similar. And then he ended up as soon as he landed at the airport, put in a detention center. Same thing at the airport. And then when he was released, he was on his own. So he spent 6 months sleeping on a bench in the airport because he had no idea where to go. And the smuggler had sent him to Glasgow, which is Scotland. He
Right.
thought he was going to London, and he couldn't understand the accent because it's so different.
Right. It's so different.
Yeah,
As an American English speaker, I went in 2002 to do some family history.
yeah, yeah,
And Glasgow, I could understand because the Glaswegian accent is one that a lot of American
yeah.
media use Scottish accents on. But then I went to Campbelltown, and that is like the border of the Highlands.
Okay.
I kept having to have
Sorry,
people
what?
repeat themselves. I went to the local library, and the Antiquarian Society secretary was giving me all this advice about where to go. She goes, "You go to this fatum and this fatum and this fatum and this fatum," and I was like, "What's a fatum?" Now I understand she was saying farm. It's just the accent is so very,
Oh,
very different.
oh wow. Yeah, so he struggled. And then because he'd met reporters at the border in Macedonia, he got in touch with one of them who worked for Channel 4 in England, who brought him into London. And then he went to university and he settled and he's happy. But, these were real stories, so even though I'd written it, I got everything checked. I changed things. I made it more authentic. I developed it. And there was only,
Right. Kind of amalgamated various people's stories.
and what I love working with you, like you essentially taught me how to question everything and elevate my writing. Like that was you, 100%. Because you said to me, like I would never have considered it, but you said to me, "Is he speaking US English or UK English?" And I was like, didn't even consider that. And I remember, like,
There are so many different Englishes around the world.
yeah, but yeah, you like to make it authentic. That's the level of detail we went into. So then I was like, WhatsApping my friend in Damascus, and I'm like, "What kind of English do you speak?" And she's like, "What does it matter? It's just English." Because when you speak English, you don't think about what kind of English it is. And I'm like, "Okay, let me try this. Do you say garbage or rubbish?" She's like, "Garbage." I'm like, "Okay. do you say chips or Chris? We say chips. Right. So you're American English. So then I'm like panicking and I'm changing everything. And yeah,
Having an American editor can help with that,
very
though.
much so. Very much so. Yeah. So you like, you made me think really deeply in all of my books. And that's changed my approach because I luckily work with you on Boy Everywhere and on that level that every book that I then approached, I started with those questions of how am I going to make this more authentic? Where is this perspective coming from? How can I, check this? So yeah, I mean, it is a huge thanks to you. You are very
Oh,
deeply,
thank
deeply
you.
huge part of my books. Like if I mean Kicked Out, we developed together from the scratch because that was, I mean, Fight Back and Boy Everywhere I pitched to you as whole books and we developed
Hmm.
them. But Kicked Out was like a chapter plan and a synopsis. So I
Hmm.
remember you reading like the first draft and you were like, okay, this needs a lot of work and can we know a bit more about Ali? So because of you then in the first chapter, I'm like putting his culture in there. I'm, showing more of his mom, why he lives on his own, why he feels responsible. And I wouldn't have thought of all of that, So it is
Hmm.
a huge thanks to you.
Well, thank you. That I think a lot of people don't know what editors
They
do
don't.
who aren't part of the process.
No.
And it's never my book. My name isn't on the book. Well, it's on the copyright pages, edited by, but like your name is on the book. And I am there to ask you questions to help you dig deeper as the author.
You asked the best
Um,
questions.
I'm glad because sometimes you go through these phases where you're like, am I good enough or anything like that, and then I hear from my authors about how much I help them, and
Oh no,
it makes me
amazing.
feel so much better.
No, honestly, like to the point where I don't know which book it was. I was like, "Can you please read it for me? I know you're really busy," and you were like, "I'm really busy." I was like, "Ah."
I'm pretty sure it was either Fight Back or Kicked Out. It was just that we hadn't
Oh,
acquired it yet officially. We were in the middle of the process, and you're like, but my UK side is publishing it now.
yeah, yeah, that was it. Yeah,
And no, and that was really important because that's an interesting thing for us to talk about, and I think that'll probably be the last thing we have time to talk about is the difference between the UK and the US editorial processes. And when you're trying to coordinate something across international lines, it is really hard for me to change significant portions of a book if it's already been published in another country.
yeah.
I mean, we might change something so that we might add, for example, context to the language. If American kids might not understand British English, we might add more context so that they understand what a buggy is at a shopping center.
Yeah.
Because we don't call a buggy might mean something else here, things like that. But being able to really dig in developmentally
Yeah.
is something that I don't feel comfortable doing if a book is already published somewhere else.
Yeah.
And so that was really important to me too, to be able to
Yeah.
have that deep work process with you on a book that I was publishing because we'd already been working for so long on all our other
I got
books.
lucky because you acquired Boy Everywhere first. The first, my publisher in the UK was working alongside making it, and then when Fight Back sold in the UK, I of course wanted the same process, and I requested that, and Scholastic were really happy to work with you together, so they did that really well coordinated, if you remember. So yeah, I mean, I've been very lucky. I know it's a unique situation in the UK because most authors don't get this. Um,
Right.
I've been very lucky.
And
It just made a
and
great book.
usually it starts in one country, goes through the whole process in that country, and then it sells to another country. Books like Harry Potter
Yeah.
went through this kind of parallel process, but it was a big book.
Yeah.
And also my friend Cheryl Klein, who
Yeah.
used to work at Lee and Low, was a copy editor on that. And for one of the last books, they literally flew her to the UK to hand carry the manuscript back to the US because of, worries about leaks and stuff like
Oh my
that.
God.
We're not at that level.
Wow.
So like being able to have that creative process across international lines was a really fun part of the process too, even if there was a little bit of stress involved as far as like, but we haven't even contracted this book yet.
But you were just, that's a testament to your passion and flexibility and, you know, wanting to make the book the best you can. And, you know, I've been very lucky to work with you. So I think we should, let's end with
I
that.
think we should
I've
just
been very
keep
lucky
working
to work
together.
with you.
Well, thank you. And we've had such a great conversation, and the books are, I can't see myself. I think I forgot to mirror things today. The books are, I'm going to do them in order. Boy Everywhere is the first book, and the sequel to Boy Everywhere is Kicked Out. Fight Back, all by A.M. Dassu, and I'll link them in the description so that you can buy them from us, the Curious Cat Bookshop. And if you're in the UK, you can look at bookshop.org and search for the Curious Cat Bookshop. And if we're not there, well, buy them from your favorite local indie bookstore, because they are wonderful books, and it's always good to support your local indie bookstore. So thank you so much for joining me, Az.
Thank you, Stacey, for having me. It was so good to chat to you.
It's so good to see your face.
Yours. Really, really. Thank you.
So, bye.
Bye.